The first use case you think about blockchain is payments, right? So that's the first thing you want to do is show that you can secure a payment mechanism, just like Visa, MasterCard, but much more secure, without middlemen, take away the fees, offers economies of scale. So the more people use it, the cheaper it gets. The way we view the future of value in the long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years, we view layer 1 blockchains will essentially become like the new republics. These will be the new mechanisms where all the value is going to proliferate to. In the future, there'll be the layer 1 blockchain, there will be the mining market, there'll be the dApps, and there'll be tokens. So the lower you get in the stack, the lower risk you have, but the lower rewards. The highest risk reward will be on the layer 1 blockchain, because that's where all the value will flow up. But it's highest value, highest risk. We view layer 1 blockchains, which is Bitcoin, Syscoin, Ethereum, as court systems. They need to be combative to the external forces that we don't control, even in the software world. In the real world, like inflation, hyperinflation, wars, these systems need to be secure from that. And this is why we view Bitcoin as the gold standard for security and decentralization. What else does the world need? What else does the world cherish when you have something like Bitcoin? How can we extend that to something else where we can take advantage to build real world utility? This is where Ethereum comes in. For me, Ethereum is a gold standard for flexibility or general computation. We're trying to stick to the gold standards we know the world's going to cherish and develop on, and we put those two concepts together. And this is what Syscoin is.
What's up, people? Hotep Jesus. We're back. We are back. I am.
That Hotep Jesus dude.
Hotep, you're a genius. HotepJesus.com.
Wow. Feels good to be back. I just got off the road, Cali. I'm jet lagged and not jet lagged because I was only there for 3 days. So I don't even know what time zone I'm on. I'm probably on some Mars time zone. Shout out to my sponsor, Syscoin, the best of Bitcoin, the best of Ethereum, using merge mining, ZK rollups. It's going to give you fast transactions. We're talking about speedy blockchain with low gas fees. If you guys want to build on the world's latest and greatest blockchain technology, go to hotepjesus.com/Syscoin or go to hotepjesus.com, hit the Syscoin button, fill out the form, and start building your latest and greatest dApp. Hopefully you're building dApps or whatever app it is that you're looking to build. Syscoin can definitely accommodate. Once again, that is hotepjesus.com/Syscoin. Also, I have released my nootropic. Everybody knows this stuff. Master Focus. Good for your mind, good for the brain. It's really a detoxifier. Some people think about my product as doing something, and it really doesn't do much. It's really just empowering your body to come back to homeostasis, come back to a place of replenishment. It does do things like promote the growth of dendrites, which handle, they're like channels between neurons, help information flow faster. But for the most part, I just enjoy the fact that this thing puts me in a good mood. And it's detoxifying the enteric nervous system, which is your other brain. Some people call it the second brain. I like calling it the other brain because who knows who's really in charge? Who knows who's primary? Maybe it's the first brain, and the brain inside your head is the second brain. Who knows? Science is always discovering new things every day. Anyway, that's trymasterfocus.com. Go ahead and get you some. Today, we have a special guest, Dr. Francie Black.
I'm not Dr. Black. My husband's Dr. Black. I'm not Dr. Black.
No, she's not a doctor. I just said that to make it sound more important.
Sorry to disappoint.
Francie, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here. For anybody that's not familiar, Hotep Nation supports the homeschooling community. We were advised that we didn't necessarily have to create something new. What we should do is support the existing community. And as we were reaching out, Francie Black was willing to work with us, and she runs Home Hacker Camp, homehackercamp.org. That link is in the description box below. A lot of weird things have gone on in public education, but when I look at public education, I just see a bunch of people who can't teach my children as good as I can. But Francie focuses in on tech, robotics, et cetera, and before we dive into the program that she runs, Home Hacker Camp, I want to dive into a little bit of background. You have an interesting background. You're in tech. You said you did a little bit of TV tech. So let's talk about your tech background, how you got into tech, or what you know.
Well, I've been in tech my entire career, but I was the nerd in middle school that set up our computer labs, actually, or
Oh, okay.
So I've been, but worked my way through college and tech. But anyhow, I came out of corporate life. I was worked for a big biotech company in Los Angeles and Thousand Oaks for many years. I was the manager of software development for them, and so I managed implementations of corporate internal intranet software. We were experimenting with the internet long before anybody knew what the internet was. And actually, a little bit of trivia on me. This is a long time ago, but I was living in Los Angeles, and we started the first real estate listing service on the internet, where you could actually, do searchable.
So this is before Airbnb.
Long before Airbnb, long before Zillow. Yeah. So I would say we were, the first Zillow, actually.
The first Zillow. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were doing that a long time ago. My husband was actually in medical school at the time, and I was working full time supporting us. But anyhow, that was.
So you said you managed software for the corporations. I guess this is the type of thing where you're selecting which software they need to use.
Oh, well, we did a lot of custom development, actually. So, it was for biotech industry, and we did a lot of internal development specific for our needs, internally worldwide needs. And so I managed, the development and developers for all of that. I did a little bit of programming myself, but I was more of the management level. But I did that for many years, and came out of that. Actually did a lot of consulting work in that same space with other companies, the e-chemical company. I worked with Honda, I worked with Volvo, doing e-business and so forth. But anyhow, so I did that a lot in the corporate world. And then, but as we moved, we're in North Carolina now.
Okay.
Went out on my own and did consulting for a while. But then it's probably been about 9 years ago, we started these camps. There was in our particular area, there were no great tech programs, no STEM programs. And so we started, actually my husband and I started in our basement, classes for youth, on how to program and solder and electronics, computer science and engineering. And so that's how these started, but just one other tip. Yeah.
Really fast. I just want to cut you off right there because I want to dive deeper into what you just said. I know why I believe tech is important. I believe many different people have many different reasons why tech is important. You even have some people say, "Oh, tech is bad. I want to go into the woods and leave me alone," and all of that type of stuff.
I hear it all the time in the homeschool environment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing?
So they're very scared of tech.
Okay.
And so I talk a lot at homeschool conferences, but what I say to parents who are fearful of tech, you have good reasons to be fearful. There's a lot of bad that goes on, but it's also not going away. Okay. So you can either run from it, but you can't run completely from it. And it pretty much commands our lives. It's in our pockets. We're walking around with it. So you can either embrace it and be a part of it, or you can run away from it. But to me, I tell people all the time, I want balanced conversations at the table. I want your kids at the table making decisions or providing input, opinions. And everybody needs that. You need to hear all sides to make decisions. And tech controls the world. Now, I've been saying that for years. But it's become brutally clear this week, even.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
So I don't know if you've seen, you probably have, but some of the conversations obviously that went on behind the scenes, even at Twitter, as they've had this, sudden change, and you have these few people that, they have sort of this, I'll call it groupthink. Groupthink is a very powerful thing, and it controls many, many flows of people, how they flow. They get into a group where they feel accepted, and they move, and they're scared to go outside that group. Okay. So you have this very strong groupthink. And this is what I would say happened at Twitter, at a high level. Okay. I'm not down into the nitty gritty, but at a high level. So you have this groupthink, but then you have these couple of folks that spoke up. It's one guy from China. I don't know if you heard of him. I grew up in China. I don't know about restricting some of this speech that we're restricting. It scares me, but he was one of the few dissenting opinions about what's happening at Twitter that actually spoke up, or that they could even find information, so there are very few voices there. So I always tell people, long before this ever happened, okay, this week or last week, we need voices at the table. Everybody needs to be present at the table. You need to hear both sides. You need to hear all sides. And if you run from tech, it leaves your voice out.
Yeah, you'll be dominated by
exactly. And it commands everything. So whether you're in, something as technical as Twitter, or a social site, or or SpaceX, or woodworking, it's all dominated by robots, controls, and software. So you want people at the table that can understand that and have an intelligent conversation about it and balance the equation in a good way. So I always tell people, I know you're fearful of it, but it's not going away. Maybe keep your kids off social media for a while. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But they need to know how to program. They need to know how to program. They need to understand some electronics. To me, it's as important as reading, writing, and arithmetic. But they need to understand these STEM things, and we want them at the table. We want all voices at the table, not just this powerful groupthink that really dominates. So, but anyhow, I always tell people that. But I think this, the events that have unfolded over the last week with Twitter, where you're seeing, how these people are trying to put their voices in, and some voices aren't heard. If you're not there, you can't be present. So anyhow, so STEM. So it's been a big part. So I've always been in tech. That's been my background.
Well, let's stop right there. We're going to come back.
Yeah.
Just want to, put a little cap on what you said there. Human beings have many different mindsets, opinions, outlooks, perspectives, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important that all of those mindsets are visited,
Correct.
Are heard, are shared, because no one's always right. Not one opinion or subjective perspective is always right, and everybody needs to be heard. And what's happening in some spaces is it may be dominated by one opinion, and therefore humanity as a whole is losing out, because you need many different opinions. If you have a corporation and everything's run one way, and some of the other ideas are kind of oppressed, or people are afraid to speak up, the corporation will suffer. I've seen that in the past with corporations, where people are afraid to speak up but have great ideas, and in the corporation it fails, right? So that's how I think about our world, and I love that you said that. So I just wanted to put a quick cap on that so people understood what you were saying there as clearly as possible, so that we can get more people at the table. You're right, get more people at the tech table. So you said you did a little bit of tech work in TV.
I did, yeah. So when I went out independent, one of the things that I picked up was doing tech segments for our local ABC affiliate. So I did that for about 6 years. The latest tech, the latest gadgets, tips, tricks, just a wide range of things. So that was our local ABC affiliate. I would go in live and do those each week. And then I started syndicating those out to other TV stations across the country. We would film them off-site, similar topics, a little shorter, condensed version of the same thing, and then send that out to TV stations across the country. At our peak, we were at about 120 stations across the country. Started tapering off with the presidential election, and then COVID hit. And so when COVID hit, we stopped that just because the news cycle was so filled with COVID information and the politics, January 6th, everything that was going on there. So those got phased out over time. But I did it for about 6 years. Yeah. So
That's dope.
live on the local ABC affiliate, and then syndicated out to about 100 stations across the country for quite a few years. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah. No, I loved it. I loved it. That's my passion, actually. I'm about ready to give. I've had quite a few projects I've been working on.
You got the broadcasting itch.
Yeah. Oh, well, I like talking the tech. Yeah. So I'll be back at CES. I always report from CES. Yeah. So
okay.
I'll be back at CES this year. I didn't go last year. And then it was canceled the year before that. But, I was about 5 years worth of covering that. So
is there a podcast on the way from you, or a YouTube channel, or?
I have a YouTube channel. You can just search my name on YouTube. But I put my live segments on there, so you can take a look at those. I've done less of, it kind of shifts a little bit. But I haven't posted anything recently because I haven't been on air as much recently. So, but anyhow, I'd like to get back to that. As COVID has now slowed down, politics are kind of calming a little bit. Shift of focus. So
it's all good. Shout out to Chad Lemoyne. He said, my wife started a homeschooling program. Appreciate the super chat, bro. The rest of y'all, stop grifting. My wife started a school this year.
Good.
Homeschooling other people's kids whose parents don't have the capability. I'd like to link y'all up. Yeah, we definitely want to get y'all connected. Me and Chad talked about that in the past. Yeah, we want to do that.
Absolutely. So our programs, just a little bit about that. So we started years ago in our basement, teaching kids how to program robots, how to program. And we always are in our particular program, and everybody has their different focus, but ours is really, we try and do the full engineering spectrum. We try and do everything we do has software, hardware, output results, software, hardware, output results. So we're not just doing programming a game on screen. We do a lot of interaction. Kids are up and down, in and out of their seats. They're writing, they're programming, and then they're seeing the physical results on a device, on a robot, and on a personalized robot. They're little tiny robots about this big. But they have a lot of functionality. They have sensors on them. We learn how to program the sensors, how the sensors work. You're seeing it in text, but what's going on behind the scenes in terms of binary and machine code. So we go through that full spectrum, and you're always getting this physical result. And then we also do, once they kind of become familiar with those, then we progress into where they're doing soldering projects and building electronics. So we do things like we build, I should have brought them here. I didn't bring them back. Shame on me. I'll just say that for the next interview.
Absolutely.
We build like what's called disco dots. And they're, they're sound reactive light displays, that are personal. They're about this big, and you can hang them on your backpack, or your purse. And when you sing or talk or play music, they light up and display different colors. So much like you would see the Christmas lights on a YouTube channel, and they're pulsing to the beat of music. Well, this is just, a little personal one. So we teach kids how to solder all the wires, all the connections, the microphones, the batteries, the input cards, how to upload the programs to it, how to modify the programs, upload it to it. And in the end, they have a what we call a disco dot.
That's
so
awesome.
Do those. Huh? No,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And a big thing about our programs, and this is, it's really hard. I know parents are focusing on reading, writing, and arithmetic, and those are clearly, priority. But beyond that, understanding tech is, in my view, extremely important. But what I see a lot of folks doing is they teach, especially in the tech world, they just kind of follow me, do what I'm doing. Here, just put this here, do this, copy this, and then this will happen. And that's real. You don't really learn that way. Okay. Students don't learn that way. You have to learn by doing, experimenting, figuring out how to be logical.
Right.
What the traps are. There's always more than one solution, and troubleshooting is a massive part of it. So we teach all the time, try this, here's how we would do it, but now you give it a try and expand beyond that to do this. And we do it all the time. Okay, go give it a test. It doesn't work, and they come back. Why doesn't it work? Figure it out. We don't always, we'll guide them, but we don't always. We definitely don't do what I call click and follow. So I see it quite frequently, the click and follow, or click and copy, as opposed to like learning how to actually think about that logic and those processes. And then in our cases, we always want that physical result. Almost everything we do has, some sort of physical output, a device. So, we use the robots initially, and then we advance up to these disco dots and some other devices. We used to build, we don't do them right now, but we used to build Amazon Alexas or, Google Home devices as well, where they could, basically build an Amazon Alexa and ask it questions, and it would connect to the internet and get the answer and bring it back. And so they've soldered the components, and gaming controllers, things like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but those are as we progress through our programs. We don't start them off with those, but again, always sort of that full spectrum, software, hardware, output, result. Those are all things that we focus on, and very tangible, very hands-on, not just staring at a computer the whole time. They're down on the floor, putting shapes on the floor and trying to program angles and turns and all kinds of things. So it's a lot of fun. We don't grade, which, I guess some people would say, oh, no, you should grade, oh, that's snowflake. Oh, that's not snowflake. But in our particular classes, they're really, they're electives really for most kids. And so it's very interesting. I can have a fourth grader that has more experience and more logic-based thinking than, say, a ninth grader. Okay, it's very interesting. So I can have, and sometimes the older kids do better, sometimes the younger kids do better. We break them up by age, but we never want anybody in our particular classes. And I know this sounds kind of anti, accountability, but the students in our classes come from hugely diverse backgrounds. Some don't have money to have a computer. Some, to even program in class. Some come from tech families. Some come from zero tech families. Okay. So their exposure is vastly different. So we don't want somebody because they've had exposure, we really want to get everybody up to a certain speed and teach them to think like a programmer and the logic. So to me, it's in our classes, it's not so much if you do it better than the other person. It's if you're really applying yourself, putting the effort in, trying to figure it out, asking great questions. And if you do know something, are you going beyond that? And if you're just getting up to speed, how hard are you, getting up to that to work to get there? So, ours are electives. It's fun. It's interactive. It's very hands-on.
How do people get into the program, and what does that process look like?
Yeah, so our website is homehackercamp.com, not org. You mentioned org earlier, but homehackercamp.com. No worries.
The chat fixed me up. It's like, get your shit together, Hotep.
Yeah, no worries. Homehackercamp.com. And the reason why it's called that, by the way, is because we did start it at home, and we were, literally doing this in our basement with a bunch of kids. And we were literally, hacking together all kinds of, crazy fun things. And so anyhow, that's how it got its name. But the name is actually a problem, because anytime we send out stuff that has the name hacker in it, it gets,
oh yeah,
it gets flagged.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Unfortunately, it gets flagged or caught, or we get sent to spam, or, so it is, we've thought about changing the name, but here we are 9 years later. But it's Home Hacker Camp, singular. That's another problem, homehackercamp.com. But you can take a look there. Typically, our kids start with us in the fall, so they're usually with us for a year. So we do semester-long classes. Some people kind of want to experiment and see if it's something that's good for their kids. So we do semester-long classes. And if you like it after one semester, then you can progress on to the next semester. And we do it online via Zoom. We actually do it different ways. I teach live at some local schools. A lot of the private schools don't have tech teachers, and so I go into some of the local schools here and teach. I also have a group of kids with learning disabilities or learning challenges or learning differences, however you want to do that. So I work with a large group of kids. that they love it. But learning is definitely, they have a range of learning differences, I'll say. And so I work with them extensively. I've worked with them for years. And then I have other schools that license my materials and teach it to their kids in co-ops. Okay. A lot of homeschool co-ops will license my materials. I have several of those going on right now. And then I teach live online with all of our kids, just like you and I are on Zoom. Our kids, we all meet in Zoom. Everybody's required to have their cameras on, and we interact just like we're in the classroom. And I inspect what they're doing. They turn their computers. I look at we're doing shapes on the floor, challenges on the floor. And everybody, it's just like we're in a classroom.
No, that's sweet.
And it's really good. Yeah. So we have, I know that was a lot of information, but we have all different, meeting a lot of different needs. So.
And what's the price ranges?
Oh gosh. It usually runs about, right around 300 for a class. So sometimes we'll offer discounts, or if a group wants to sign up, or if a co-op wants to sign up an entire group of kids, then we'll offer a discount. But that includes their robot. Okay. So so it's actually very inexpensive. It's roughly around $300 a class, but about 100 of that is robot and supplies, so, or close to it. Yeah. So it's about a $200 class. To me, it's a steal, but for a semester long tech class, I mean, you can go to a local camp and spend,
thousands,
2,000, on an app camp or something like that. So, I keep it, I think some people perceive it as being expensive, but if you take the cost of the hardware out of it, it's a very, very inexpensive, option from my point of view. Really about $200 for a student to go through a semester long of a tech course.
That's a steal. If you ask me. And how long are the classes?
They're online. They're an hour and a half. We meet for 11 weeks.
Okay.
In the fall, we go from basically Labor Day to Thanksgiving. Okay. Once a week. So once a week, Labor Day to Thanksgiving, online, hour and a half sessions, and that's our fall semester. And then our spring semester starts up at the end of January and runs through April. So.
Sweet. So let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's get to the juice. Yeah. Our lovely donors have donated to our program, Hotep Nation. Shout out to all of our donors. We appreciate you showing love.
Thank you very much. I'd like to say we have quite a few students.
I want to get an update on our kids, the Hotep Nation kids.
Yeah.
Because our donors are like, hey, Hotep, you took our money. What's going on with it?
Yeah,
and I'm like, don't worry, I got you.
I'm happy to share anything that anybody wants to know. I don't post much.
Right.
One, I do a lot of this myself, so my time is pretty strapped. I would love to have some help, so I don't post a whole lot. But every child that Hotep's sponsored has gone through the program for the fall. They've done great. I had a couple of kids, a couple of really interesting kids. Young kids that were just super, super bright, probably some of the brightest ones I've had that you all sponsored, that did incredibly well. And they had a little bit of the software experience, but they lacked the hardware side. And it was interesting because they were very confident on the software, but when it came to troubleshooting the tech on the hardware side, they really struggled with that. And it frustrated them because they were so confident on one end, but then on the hardware piece, which it takes both, you can't have one without the other. One of our questions is, we always discuss what's more important, the hardware or the software,
Yeah.
Who's the boss? That's what we always talk about, that. Who's the boss? Well, the hardware does nothing without the software. The software does nothing without the hardware. And so, but I always tell them I think software is king, because hardware, the software gives the instruction.
Yeah,
so
that's the brain. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the brain. So, so that's what we talk about. But anyhow, they were good on the software side. But as soon as it came to having to deal with the hardware side, they really, they struggled.
Yeah.
And became frustrated. But they were really bright on the software side. But
that might have a lot to do with access to smartphones gets you acclimated to software really fast. Yeah. But then, where in our life are we dealing with the motor skills for electronics, recognizing parts of electronics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
you don't really run into that too much. You don't know what's inside this iPhone,
You don't know exactly.
You
And
never-
we're looking all the time. We talk about that. So the exact same concepts that they're using for these robots, which, they're uploading to a motherboard. We talk about all the chips, the ports, the connections. How do they connect to the sensors? How does the sensor get data? What gives the sensor instruction? Why, how, but yeah, so we talk about the inside. We actually keep the tops of our robots off so they can actually see those chips, that the brains, that are getting the instruction. And we share that all the time. I've got one right over there.
Go grab it. Go grab it.
You're gonna grab it.
Yeah. Go ahead. We got time. Shout out to the chat. Appreciate the chat. Showing love. Somebody said Chat GPT will take all the jobs. You think so?
Yeah, so this is one of our robots. And so we always keep the lids off. But we're talking about how the ports, how they talk, how they interact with the sensors, what the chips are. We don't, in this particular, when we're doing our robots, we're not doing any soldering on these, but our other programs, we're actually soldering wires on and chips on there. And so actually get into, again, we can just get deeper and deeper into it. But this is a lot of sensors. It has buzzer, it has lights, it has input output ports, it has expansion slots. And so we're talking about all of those components throughout class. So we're always referencing those. And again, you're dealing with software, but what's it doing on the hardware? What's it talking to?
Right.
How does it get there? Why? How does it get power? Essentially you have to have power, where's it getting it from? Why?
So some of the kids in this, or our Hotep Nation kids, are families who needed a little bit of financial support to get into the program, right?
That is correct. Yep. Yeah. And we do find that as an issue, even though to me, $300 or so for a class, or $320 it's a stumbling block for a lot of people,
because they're money for some folks.
It is. And I understand that. And I will tell you, when I teach, I can tell you right now, it's unfortunate because I do see the divide, because I see the families that resource is not an issue. Those are the people that can take my class. And then I see people who struggle a little bit more and are dying to homeschool. But it's extra for them. And they have a cap on their budget that they can do. And it's got to go to their core, their reading, writing, arithmetic, and maybe, their athletics, because I think that's important too, of course, or some extracurricular, horseback riding, or whatever it is that they do. But there is a cap on funds. And I do see that a lot. And I know it's a stumbling block. I had a family last year. This is before we had connected, and this guy was a chiropractor, and his business had gotten decimated over COVID. And so he was, so you would think that he would have zero financial issues in that, and he had huge financial issues. He's like, he goes, I'd love to do this, but we just can't do it right now. We just can't. We're getting our feet back on our ground. We had 2 years of no business. And, we're going on 3 years, and, we're rebuilding, and it's been really hard, so they have to, it's a struggle. So as much as I do see that, I see, and it's unfortunate. Reading and writing, there's a little bit less of a barrier to entry on those, but with my stuff, I have a lot of costs with hardware and so forth. And so it is, I do see that divide, and you all have helped with that. So thank you. And if we continue on, then I'll really be focusing in on that this coming year. I had a whole school. This is a few years ago. This was pre-COVID, and it was a bunch of students that they were financially very tight, and out of state in Texas, actually. And we talked to them about how we could get this program going, and then the conversations kind of fizzled leading up to COVID. But anyhow, there's a huge need out there. Let me just put it that way. There's a massive need for the homeschool community and the financial support there. So thank you to all the sponsors. Really appreciate it. Went straight to these students. They were all in class all semester long. They did well.
Do you see a disparity between them and some of the kids that have resources as far as getting acclimated with the work?
Sometimes, yeah. Because
is
some
it,
kids
are they
have it at home.
behind?
Some kids, huh?
Are they behind?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Because I think that's probably due to lack of exposure, right?
that's what I was going to say. It's not that they're not smarter. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
A lot of it is exposure. A huge percentage is exposure. So I have some kids that parents feed it to them. They have laptops. They're, you know, experimenting, trying little things. But then other kids, I mean, you know, I have kids that don't even have never even been on a laptop, you know.
Yeah.
So it's exposure. Or I have students that have I get a lot of engineering dads. Their kids, I get a lot of their students because they realize the value of it, but they don't have the time or the organization to put together a progressive program or the patience to put their kids through our course. Okay. Or on their own. And so they put them through our course.
Right.
Because they homeschool, but they don't have the time, effort, or energy to put together a curriculum that is a progressive curriculum.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of engineering dads. So those aren't so much on the resource side on there, but their kids have exposure to it. Their dads talk to them about it, or their moms talk to them about it. It's not just dads, but I do get a lot of engineering dads with their kids in class. And then I get those who have zero experience, like families are not tech oriented at all, and their kids, they want it and they don't even know where to go. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. You know, my kid really wants to do this, and you're the only program I can find that kind of meets what we want, which is, you know, not just the programming, but the programming, the hardware, the software, the output result. And so, so we definitely fill that void as well, which is where they just have zero experience and they don't know where to go. They don't know where to start. So,
yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm glad we, you know, the community has access to these programs. Cassius Cam, thank you. He says, my mom used to say $300 isn't a lot of money, but an extra $300 is a lot of money.
There you go.
I get my bars from mama. Yeah, absolutely.
It's true. You know, I see it all the time. And we try and keep our classes, again, very inexpensive from our perspective for what they get out of it. But he just summed it up very well. An extra $300 is a lot of money, you know. And I know a lot of these people have multiple kids. So I have 4 children.
Same.
But, you know, I always thought I had a lot of kids still. I went to a homeschool conference and you get people coming up with 12 and 13 kids.
Yikes.
You know, I'm like nothing. You know, they got the two double strollers and
yeah, and they're not spread apart. They're all like year after year after year after year.
Yeah. So anyhow, but again, so it's a resource. So resource is an issue, and I do appreciate you all coming alongside and helping out with some students. It's been really great and very appreciative. And
I'm glad we were able to facilitate that. One time, Dr. Marker for our donors. Oh my God, love you guys. I can't wait to send this email out. Send it out to my email list. I'm gonna send it out to the Hotep Nation email list and our donors so they can enjoy this and see that their money is going to good. And, you know, make this thing bigger and badder. You know, hopefully one day we can just build a tech hub. We can build our own home hacker Silicon Valley.
I love it. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Again, there's a huge need. People want it. Financial is definitely a barrier. So if you can do that and make it accessible, that's the big thing. Getting it accessible to everyone is the challenge. You know, it's a challenge. So it's hard. It's hard.
Somebody's got to do it, and we'll do it. We'll get it done. If you guys want to donate to the program, go to hotepnation.com/donate or hotepnation.com, and you can go donate to our program. Francie, it's been a wonderful conversation with you. This conversation will be up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can go to hotepjesus.com/podcast to get links to all the different places this podcast will live. This is Francie Black of homehacker.com. If you guys want to sign.
Homehackercamp.com.
Homehackercamp.com. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I told you it's a hard name. Homehackercamp.com. It's because we started literally at home.
What did I say? Home hacker?
Literally. Huh?
What did I say? Home hacker?
Yeah, you said home hacker, which is fine. We get called.
You know what that sounds like, black hat, hacking in through your Ring camera.
Right, exactly. That's why I get caught by all the spam filters. So our mail marketing is not so brilliant.
Yeah.
But homehackercamp.com, singular, homehackercamp.com.
Homehackercamp.com. I love it.
There you go.
Francie, hang on. I appreciate you, and we'll see you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for the time.
The first use case you think about blockchain is payments, right? So that's the first thing you want to do is show that you can secure a payment mechanism, just like Visa, MasterCard, but much more secure, without middlemen, take away the fees, offers economies of scale. So the more people use it, the cheaper it gets. The way we view the future of value in the long term, 3 to 5 to 10 years, we view Layer 1 blockchains will essentially become like the new republics. These will be the new mechanisms where all the value is going to proliferate to the future. There will be the Layer 1 blockchain, there will be the mining market, there'll be the dApps, and there'll be tokens. So the lower you get in the stack, the lower risk you have, but the lower rewards. The highest risk reward will be on the Layer 1 blockchain, because that's where all the value will flow up. But it's highest value, highest risk. We view Layer 1 blockchains, which is Bitcoin, Syscoin, Ethereum, as court systems. They need to be combative to the external forces that we don't control, even in the software world. In the real world, like inflation, hyperinflation, wars, these systems need to be secure from that. And this is why we view Bitcoin as the gold standard for security and decentralization. What else does the world need? What else does the world cherish when you have something like Bitcoin? How can we extend that to something else where we can take advantage to build real world utility? This is where Ethereum comes in. For me, Ethereum is a gold standard for flexibility or general computation. We're trying to stick to the gold standards we know the world's going to cherish and develop on, and we put those two concepts together. And this is what Syscoin is.